Hi guys, I think, is this Elle? Yes, I'm always live. I never can tell when I'm live or not. It's really, what do you say? It's like really delayed right now. I think, is this Elle? Yes, I'm always live. I never can tell when I'm live or not. It's really, hi guys. Okay, so it's like really delayed right now. So I'm gonna just mute that part. Can you guys still hear me? I'm gonna wait for Elle for that. Hi guys, thanks for joining. Very sweet of you guys. Now I can read all your quotes. I couldn't see them earlier. Let me go through this guy. Okay. Let me make sure you guys can still hear me because I muted my part. Let me see. Okay, great. Okay guys, hi, welcome. This happened a lot faster than the last time. Last time took me like 30 minutes to get set up with a live, but welcome to our second YouTube live with Hardware Beauty. And today I'm going to do a quick demonstration with the makeup brush roll, but at the same time, I'm going to do a professional video where I will show you different sizes of brushes and different types of makeup that can also fit in the brush roll. So it can serve as more of a makeup bag as well. And that will be out hopefully next week, I'm assuming, at some point. So yeah, that will come, but I will show you the gist of this as well here today. But I'm going to scroll down and find comments because I would love to hear from anybody in the comment section. Did you guys watch Chasing Coral? It's something that I'm really passionate about, and I love documentaries. It's one of my passions in life that I sometimes even prefer unscripted versus scripted. And when I say sometimes, I mean most of the time. So I thought what better of a platform than to talk about the docs that I love on here while I have you guys' attention, and hopefully you guys will have a similar interest in what I'm choosing week to week. So it's sort of a visual book club, so that when we are doing lives, I love to be a source of, you know, a teaching lesson, a teaching moment, I guess is what Oprah would call it, where you guys can take part in learning something new and teach me something as well. So if you have any suggestions for other documentaries, I wanted to take this opportunity to please let me know. And I'm going to scroll down and see any comments about the documentary first, because Teen Wolf would go forever and ever. I could answer Teen Wolf questions till the end of time with you guys. So if there are not any doc questions, I'll wait for those for a while to come in. Chasing Coral. If anybody watched Chasing Coral and has any tidbits about that, I think that was pretty interesting. In that I didn't know that corals, I knew they were alive, but I didn't know they had that many like sort of human-like parts or living parts to them, like a mouth, or does the mouth function like our mouth? Not necessarily, but they still have, you know, mouth, tentacles, stomachs, skeletal structure. I think it was really interesting that the polyps were millions of polyps in this coral structure, but they are one animal. I found that interesting because it's hard for us to conceptualize that idea. If you're one entity, you're one entity, but these were one entities that made up millions of one entities that made up truly one entity. I also thought it was interesting. I even took notes. First of all, Jeff ORLOWSKI. Oh, thank you for the recommendation. Yes, Kelly O'Connor. I'm into anything about our oceans. I love oceans, but I'm more of a mountain girl, so this was definitely something that I wanted to check out. I go to a documentary film festival every year, the same one that covers a lot of social issues and environmental issues, and so that was a documentary I did not get to see while at the festival. So I thought, well, I'll take any Teen Wolf and Hardware fans along with me to watch this documentary. I loved the colors in this video, obviously, this documentary. Being this is a Hardware live session, I think the colors are worth mentioning. And obviously bleaching, the bleaching coral was the main topic in this documentary. And the director was Jeff Orlowski. I might be butchering this last name, but shout out to Jeff Orlowski. I did a little research about him. He was, my favorite genre of documentary, by the way. I would have to say, that's really tough. I love sport documentaries, like outdoor sport documentaries, mountaineering documentaries in particular. But I also love kayaking, kite skiing, rock climbing, a big rock climbing fan. There's a new doc that's not out yet that I want you guys to check out. There's actually a couple rock climbing ones that I'm a big fan of. My brother was a pro rock climber for several years, so it might have some sort of influence on why I like rock climbing documentaries. What drew me to this documentary? I love outdoor documentaries and I love environmental documentaries. So I don't know a lot about the oceans. I'm more of a mountain girl. So I wanted to see, Jeff is a guy, Mr. Orlowski went to Stanford and majored in anthropology there. That's something that interests me. I think acting and anthropology, studying of human culture, studying of people, groups of people, have obviously a lot of overlap. So he in college, well, first of all, for 9/11, for the Americans out there, he did a really in-depth story in his high school newspaper about 9/11 that the New York Times actually picked up and ran. And from there, he went to Stanford and was part of an environmental newspaper and started studying how icebergs were changing over time with time-lapse cameras. And that turned into his first full-length feature, I believe. Full-length feature. I think he had done some shorts before that called Chasing Ice. So this was sort of the sequel to Chasing Ice, which was Chasing Coral, which was originally started actually by a different person. And he found out, an underwater photographer who found out about Jeff, and then they started working together on Chasing Coral. So that's kind of in sorts of how I found the documentary, but I found it fascinating that by only raising the temperature in an ocean by 2 degrees. So for Celsius, that's 37 Celsius to 39 Celsius. And for the Fahrenheits out there, that's like, that would be like taking your body temperature and going from 98.6 to 102.2, and your normal body temperature being 102.2. That's what I found fascinating. Would you want to walk around with 102 fever on a normal basis? Don't you think that would do something to your body? And that's exactly what's happening to the oceans. And with all of the global warming that, all the extra heat that is trapped within our atmosphere, 93% of that heat that's being trapped is going into the oceans. We're only seeing 7% of that heat. The oceans are taking the brunt of it, 93%. So if the oceans weren't taking the brunt of that heat, it would rise something like, I think they said, to 122 degrees Fahrenheit would be the surface temperature of the earth. It would raise, I think they said 50, 60, 70, 80 degrees, something crazy like that. That's how much the oceans are helping us out. And because that temperature of just 2 degrees is causing the algae that would usually be on coral that they would eat to dissipate and to basically be evacuated out of those coral regions because of the heat. There was something about why the food source would disappear with that 2 degree increase. But again, that's like your body temperature being 102 degrees or 39 degrees Celsius. So the difference is pretty big. But yeah, I would say that all those facts were interesting for me. I really didn't know a lot about coral. Coral also, there's so many thousands of kinds of coral that we've never been able to experiment enough with. I mean, there's, the scientists had talked about in this particular documentary, I talked about, the marine biologists had talked about, there are that certain coral they've found that they've been able to experiment with in certain, I guess, pharmaceutical companies that did help treat certain kinds of cancer. I mean, we don't really know how much is out there that could help us as humans. And once that coral turns white, once it bleaches, it's dead. It's just skeleton. It's like seeing our skeleton lying around and going, oh, is that a live human? No, that's the person's skeleton. It's the same thing with coral. Once they've turned white, that's just the skeleton. They've been starved of their food and they've died. And you're seeing these big waves. One was in the 1980s, and then their next one was in 1998, and another one in 2010. So I had no idea that coral were dying at that rate. I knew they were dying, but I didn't know how fast they were dying. There were 6 month changes where the coral would go from colorful to bleached. And like I said, a 6 month period. So I had no idea it was happening that fast. And I had no idea that it was quite as widespread as this documentary informed me about. I also think that, it's obvious that coral also help break waves so that it's a natural barrier for us, in oceans. So I think that's interesting as well. There's so many things that coral do for us, and yet global warming is killing this coral. There was a great analogy saying there wouldn't be a city without buildings, and there's certainly not an ocean without coral. So it was just food for thought. And if I'm doing these, YouTube lives, I want to hopefully bring something new every time. And this was just a great doc that I heard a lot of great things. So I hope for those of you that checked it out, enjoyed it. How often do you watch documentaries? I watch them. It ebbs and flows. I mean, sometimes I'll watch like 5 documentaries in a week, and then the next 3 weeks I don't watch anything because I'm working and trying to get stuff done. So this is actually a good schedule for me to be at least watching one every week on a consistent basis so I can talk about it with you guys here. So I'll depend on this chat for the communication process, because I feel like you'd get really tired of me talking, which I'm already tired of me talking. Have you seen the Jinx and Staircase? Oh, you've seen the Jinx. So Natasha Grace says you've seen the Jinx and Staircase at least 6 times. I have watched both of those, and I am a full believer. Well, I don't want to ruin the Staircase for those that haven't seen it, but there's a theory online that was not covered in the documentary for Staircase that, you get so little information from the internet and what is accurate and not accurate. But according to several websites, there tended to be a consistent list of points that were evident, to me, were evidence of this particular theory, but it's not in the documentary. So Natasha Grace, I would suggest going online. I don't want to ruin it for anyone who hasn't seen Staircase yet, but I did enjoy that docu-series. It was really heartbreaking and hard to watch, but I think it's important in the entertainment industry we tell nonfiction stories because I honestly believe they're better than the fictional stories or historical fiction. So there's that. What is the documentary called? It's called Chasing Coral, was the one I was talking about today. The one I was just talking about was a docu-series called Staircase. And then, have you watched a whale documentary? The person that tweeted that, come back to me. I would love to know the whale documentary to tell you guys about. Pass that along. My favorite documentary is so hard. Touching the Void was a really good one for me that I really enjoyed. Touching the Void is an intense documentary. I highly suggest that one. It's a mountaineering documentary about 2 people climbing and a disaster happening. And that's not giving away too much. So Touching the Void was really intense. What is the name of the documentary called? I really want to watch it. It's called Chasing Coral. Chasing Coral. Chasing Coral. Chasing Coral by Jeff Orlowski directed it, and James Belang. I'm going to butcher that name, as the underwater photographer, amongst a great crew of marine biologists and people that work for NOAA, which I believe is what does the N stand for? But it's Oceanic Atmospheric Association. It's the National Oceanic Atmospheric Association. So shout out to NOAA. They did a lot of research for Chasing Coral as well. Why do I spend more time on Twitter? I just tend to be more of a visual person, so I like Instagram better. But I always try and include Twitter when I post on Instagram. Where can you watch the documentary? Great question. I watched it on Netflix. I tried to choose a documentary this week that was really easy to get a hold of. So I apologize if it's not on your country's Netflix. But Chasing Coral, I'm sure you can find it on iTunes or National Geographic, or Netflix. So check those places out. iTunes or Netflix should have it though. What story do you want to see become a documentary? That's a great question. Stydia24. Where's Stydia from? Oh gosh. Well, I'm trying to produce a documentary right now about a photographer going to interesting places considering what he does for a living. So I'm very passionate about his story. So that's what I'm trying to tell right now. So hopefully more to come on that. Let me see. Any more doc questions? Okay, so Central Park 5 was amazing. They're making it into a movie. The doc was so good. Don't know if how they're going to top it. Natasha Grace again. Thank you so much. Central Park 5. I don't know about this one, so I will look into it. Thank you. Central Park 5. I won't forget that one. Have you watched the documentaries, the whale documentaries on Netflix? I can't remember the names, but I think they're by David Attenborough. Love David Attenborough. Thank you, Sam Hake. Love David Attenborough. I also love Ken Burns. Is also a big documentary savant that I've followed for many years. Grizzly Man is one of my favorite docs as well. I love fascinating subjects, and those are usually people that live their life to the fullest and have followed their passions. And it's hard to do those things. You know, I know from firsthand experience that it's really hard to follow what you love to do and keep following it. Have you watched Making a Murder? I have. I haven't watched Making a Murder. It's been a while, but I have. Blue Planet is probably the whale doc. Thank you, Chelsea, I think it was. So Blue Planet. I've seen some of Blue Planets and Planet Earth and Human Planet, I believe. Planet Earth, Human Planet, and Blue Planet. I've not seen Blue Planet. I'll check that out. What documentary had the most impact on you? There was one called Let It Burn. I wish I knew the director. Let It Burn was really hard to watch. It was a documentary about, I think it was Philadelphia. I think it was Philly. That was made now, but it was about the 70s, about this Black Panther movement, and the mayor in this town just let this, huge neighborhood burn because of the people living there and how he felt about them. So Let It Burn was a pretty big deal that not a lot of people know about as far as American history goes. So I would check out Let It Burn. That probably had one of the biggest impacts on me, is just as far as just knowing about not knowing about such a big part of our history in America that is not really taught in schools about this story, about this corrupt mayor. Would you be interested in documentaries about dogs? I'm a former dog trainer. Sarah Spencer is a former dog trainer and would love to see opinions and thoughts on the trends in dogs training and moving towards psychology-based training. I would love to see more. I've seen a few, and I wish I knew those dog titles. But I found them fascinating. I found it fascinating of how many toys they pick out in what order, understanding that if there's like a telephone pole and you're walking your dog and there's a leash, you're on one side and the leash is here and the dog's on the other side of the pole. They don't understand, apparently, that you have to go around. They can't comprehend that, apparently. That was one of the things I learned in that doc about dogs, about dog training and dog psychology. But I love France. A shout out to France in that there was a law that passed a few years ago that if you were to abuse it, I don't know if it's an animal or just dogs, one or the other, you would be treated as, you'd be tried in court as if you had abused a human. Dogs have a lot of rights there, and I wish that this country, where I live in the U.S., treated animals the same way, or dogs at least the same way. We start somewhere, like they do in France. It's beautiful to see. You go into a restaurant and dogs are accepted just like humans are, and they're sitting in the chairs in the booths. I think that's awesome. People think health codes here are like, you're going to get sick, or, there's going to be some disease spread because there's a dog in a restaurant. And it's like, I think France is okay, guys. They don't have too many diseases. They're doing okay. They can sit in restaurants just fine. They don't get sick. So I'm proud of France for doing that. Ever wanted to be an animal while watching a documentary? Don't know what that's about. Was it favorite memory about Teen Wolf? Well, talk about that later. Speaking of documentaries, what topics do you think should get covered more thoroughly in school? Oh my gosh. I mean, Chasing Coral is a great example. Chasing Ice is a great example. I think docs are a great way to teach kids all of the different kinds of jobs. I'm still learning the different kinds of jobs that exist in the world because of the documentaries that I watch. The kinds of opportunities for travel, the kind of opportunities for working outdoors. I think documentaries are so crucial to that point of teaching kids what options are out there for them. Are they academically inclined? Do they want to get outside? I mean, Ansel Adams is a photographer that would photograph national parks here and was a huge part of establishing national parks in the U.S. And he was actually apparently a terrible student in school. And that was one of the reasons he just sort of gave up and took a camera and started going outdoors. And the cameras back then were, 100 pounds. So I think their documentaries are essential to a curriculum in school, in my opinion. If you can make a documentary, what would it be about? Mercedes Vanderboom. To reiterate earlier, I am working with a photographer that he's a toy photographer, and he goes to certain parts of the world that you would not expect a toy photographer to go. So I'm hoping that his story is given its day in court and to shine a light on the kinds of people that will take their free time and their savings and try and tackle this global problem with just their talent. And he was a toy photographer, and that's what he decided to do. So that's a pretty cool story that I found out about a couple years ago, and I'm trying to help in any way I can. Which documentaries touch me the most? The mountaineering ones. Stories of kids are always, I think they pull at most people's heartstrings, just because they're the vulnerable and they're the source of opportunity as well. They've got their whole lives ahead of them. So you want to be a part of structuring it towards the right direction. Let me see. Dinosaur documentaries. Ooh, that's a good one. Dinosaur documentaries. I'll have to check more of those out. I think I've seen maybe one, but that's actually not very much on my radar. So I will check that one out. You turned to Alexander McQueen. I have seen part of the McQueen doc. I'm not really a huge fashion girl. I appreciate it 100%, but you'll see, obviously on my Instagram, I own the same 10 items of clothing. And I'm, if I do, I go to a carpet and my amazing stylist is a part of dressing me. And I definitely have an opinion. We definitely pick it out together. But, I keep an eye out in the corner of my eye because I think it is interesting, how a cut can fit somebody so well. A simple t-shirt can look so good just depending on the cut. But I wouldn't say it's my passion per se. I will leave that to Karen Raphael, my stylist, and she does an amazing job at it. I do love going to the fashion shows and meeting designers and hearing their stories. I love hearing people's stories. That's ultimately what I'm about. So it doesn't matter if you're a fashion designer or, you grew up in a really tough part of the world with a tough story. If you're scientists, and how did you become that scientist in that particular industry where you excavate bones or go underwater and watch how coral changes. I mean, I find it fascinating what everyone does for a living. So I can't get all of these questions, but I'm trying to get them as much as I can. Do I prefer movies or docs? I actually prefer documentaries, but I'm trying to work my way back into movies. There's some good ones coming out that I'm excited about. Would you consider filming a documentary in the future? So that's, again, yes, I am trying to, produce a documentary. I don't know about filming a documentary, but I'm highly interested in producing one about this toy photographer. So more to come, hopefully, on that. Are you a fan of almost death experiences? Yes, very much so. There was actually a great short form doc that I saw about there had been a concussion and he was in a coma, and it was in a very cold part of the world where they discovered that if they're able to keep the body at almost sub-zero temperatures for X amount of time, it helps the brain deswell. And if somebody is on the verge of death, it could potentially put them sort of in a, I don't know how to say it, like a comatose state, was what this doc was about. And even to the point of they can die. But if there's a way they can resuscitate that dead body, that if they keep them on ice for a certain period of time, they're able to thaw it back out and reinvigorate the organs. And it was just a bizarre study that it happened, and then these scientists tried to recreate this study, or this incident that had happened, and it worked apparently. So I mean, that is a death experience and coming back from the dead technically. And I wish I remember that doc, but if you Google, I think it was in like Norway, or but yeah, almost death experiences or bringing back people from the dead after putting their body literally on ice. Google something along those lines and you might find this doc. It was pretty cool. Let me see. If you watch confession tapes, I have not. So thank you, Sam Hake. I will check out confession tapes. See, we all love docs, and we didn't even know it. That we all love docs as much as we do. Does Fifo watch documentaries? She pretends to, I'm sure. I don't think she really cares, though. Laura was a documentary. How did you feel about filming it and being part of such an important story? It was a podcast about true stories, and then we recreated that and had aspects of historical fiction involved. But yeah, that was a really intense story about being the last witch in Ireland for something on Amazon show called Lore I did last year. Okay, so true crime docs. Any recommendations of the great ones in different areas so I can branch out? True crime docs are not a big passion of mine, but they're a huge passion of my best friend Mahaley. Evil Genius is a true crime doc that I watched recently. It was a docuseries, Evil Genius. It was hard to watch, honestly. It was really hard to watch. I think overall, the more inspirational docs, the ones trying to change the world, the ones educating us about problems that are right under our nose, and we don't realize how big of an impact we're making on these problems. I think that's probably that is one of my favorite categories. Or, like I said, people with interesting jobs telling their stories and what's happened amongst their coworkers. Maru, Conrad Anker, and Jimmy Chin, and Renan Ozturk. I hope I'm pronouncing Renan's name right. Those are three mountaineers. They're on the North Face team. I don't know if Renan is, but I know Jimmy Chin and Conrad Anker are, and they're some of the bravest people as far as adventure and sport go on the face of this earth. And they care very much about where they go to, and every mountain they climb, and the community that's around that mountain. And I believe it's Conrad and Jimmy, and maybe it's Renan as well. I'm sure it's a group of them that I think Conrad Anker and his wife, Jenny, I think that's her name. She's an amazing outdoors person as well. But yeah, they built a school for the Sherpa community that at the base of Everest in that town that has to walk so far for an educational opportunity. So they've built a school up in the mountains. So yeah, there's just amazing people on this earth. So that's where I tend to focus my attention towards versus the true crime docs. But I watch S-Town. I mean, I listen to S-Town, the podcast, and I listen to Serial like the rest of the world. So yeah. Let me see. Is it the Mercedes? So she loves you. Love you too. I know this is a different subject, but you still hang out with you from Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf I'll focus on later just because this is about the doc and hardware, because I'll get to hardware as well right now. Oh, there's a bit of approaching a doc. Okay, space documentaries. Love space documentaries. I watched The Universe with Brian Green, but I need to get back more to the space stuff and dinosaur stuff. That wasn't on my radar, so thank you for that tip. If anybody offered for me to work on a documentary, I mean, I'm trying to produce one right now, but if anyone wanted me to be part of another one, yes, I would drop at the opportunity, considering I like the subject matter. Would I create a documentary about my life? No, I would not. I just don't think, no, I would not create a documentary about my life in particular. I think it was a documentary about someone that made a documentary about her life. and I had just no interest about just the inner workings of their family, unless something ultra ordinary existed, something that has a macro connection to it. I think it's just more for that person's personal growth and personal experience. So I think my family, you'd probably find very boring, and you know, I love them, and they're from my personal experience and growth. So prison documentaries kind of fall into the true crime docs for me. I mean, I'll watch them. I watched one about Russian prisons once that was pretty intense, called the Black Dolphin, I think is what it was called, that prison. Ironically, I think it had an English name, and or it was Black Dolphin in Russian. And it was interesting to see how they were incarcerated there, and how does it help or hurt their psyche compared to the American prisoners. I also think something like 13th, you know, Ava DuVernay's 13th doc about the prison system, the problems with it, great subject matter as well. But I tend to focus on the showcasing problems and how to fix them. When did I start watching documentaries? Probably a teenager, but I would say it was probably when I really got on Teen Wolf, and you're kind of exhausted in your free time. You're not kind of, you are exhausted. I was. So I would watch docs. That's what I did when I wasn't at work. What about documentaries about certain traditions in small communities around the world? Does anyone know one like this? I'd love to watch one. Puts me close to different cultures. Nat Geo, Linda Schneider, asked this question about what documentaries showcase different cultures. Human Planet is also a really great documentary about showing, or docuseries about showing different environments in which people live. So there's one like about jungles and rivers and oceans. You're like, well, how do people live in oceans? How do people live in rivers? And it's pretty incredible to see these different communities and how they live life. So Human Planet is one I would suggest. And then The Last Honey Hunter, which there's an episode in Human Planet that is like The Last Honey Hunter. It's called Black Dolphin because one of the prison is there. Where's that one? Okay, so Paola Molina also watched The Black Dolphin. Yeah. I've been in New Zealand. Your country is absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. Both islands. Let's see. Don't know. Did the thing about the sand and parrotfish? Yes. Yes, Natasha Grace. It did. There was a parrotfish feces is basically what the coral was eating. So yeah, they did. And there was so much about the Chasing Coral doc that I did not know about. So that was fun to learn those. The Louis Kahn, I have not seen that, but I will check out Louis Kahn documentary, Blue Planet. We've got some stuff to check out. Climate change. Yeah, I mean, all Al Gore's stuff, The Inconvenient Truth, Still an Inconvenient Truth, I believe the sequel. Great global warming docs. I have seen the Titanic documentary a long time ago. Does HARDWEAR Beauty ship to the UK? Yes, we do ship to the UK. On that note, I will segue. Pyramid Code, good doc. It is a good doc. Okay, HARDWEAR Beauty. Thank you guys, first of all, for coming. I'm using this platform to talk about makeup. Elle, at some point, will be coming on here to do some talking videos, but you can also check her out on Elle Leary Artistry for more traditional tutorial-based makeup lessons. We'll also have some on hardware coming up as well. I'll have some videos about my skincare, about travel. How do I travel with all of my stuff? Because I'm on the road so much. Believe me, I'm a big person. I'm pretty big in organization. So traveling toiletry life is a whole language, and I would love to show you guys how I organize that. So those will be the videos coming up in the next few weeks. But next week we'll have a professional HARDWEAR Beauty rolling session, and I'm gonna undo this. Okay, so here is this. This is what it looks like when it's this. Now, when you put your brushes in, you don't need it to be all the way half down, because obviously most brushes are longer than this. all you need to be covering is just the bristles. So if you have a really long brush and it's only covering this much, like this, and then you start rolling from here, you set it, this will be on the ground obviously, and then you just roll, assuming this is on the ground. You just roll like this. You roll all the way up, as so, and then you tie. So it's that easy. Again, just roll and see if I unroll it. It's left right at that little piece where it's just the bristles. Now if you have shorter brushes or small makeup palettes and you want to go more down here, great. So it's that simple. Also, I wanted to take a poll. So if any of you guys have any suggestions, we are going to be ordering another load of makeup brushes. Do you guys want to see different colors? Multicolored. What color would you want to see the most? Lining, trim, inside. Give us feedback. Leave comments below as well once this session ends of what do you guys want to see. Because Ellen, I would love your feedback. Right now we are running low, I believe. Well, do you want to see large or smalls in different colors? So that's something that we wanted to get some housekeeping out of the way with you guys as well, because this is such a great opportunity to have a direct conversation with you guys. I will be doing my own makeup video as well in the future. That's a video that will be coming up. Let me see if we have any questions here. Let's see. Oh, Elle said, I said brushes. Well, I obviously mean the brush roll, but I'm saying when your brushes get put in here and you're just covering the bristles, that's okay. But yes, we are ordering another load of brush rolls, not brushes. Right now there's enough brushes in the marketplace and we feel that we'd love to make hardware brushes, but right now we want to cover our bases of what's not really out there right now. And I know for me, something I'm very excited to talk about is I always am ruining the eyeshadow palettes. And I often tend to not even travel with an eyeshadow palette because I'm like, well, what's the point? It's just gonna break in travel. Even if it's a carry-on, it'll still break somehow. So Elle and I talked about this, and there will be a pocket that is bigger than the ones that we've created here, so that it will be twice as big, so that basically in the large, you're gonna have two pockets where you could fit it's called a standard makeup palette. And what I mean by that is the Urban Decay, the Hourglass, the Visage, that's that like 12 paletted eyeshadow case. It's not the 4-1. It's like the 8-12 case. So it's the standard size of Urban Decay, Hourglass, Charlotte Tilbury, Visage. Visage is the one that I use. You guys will find that out in a future video when I'm just doing my own makeup. And I don't want glitter or shimmer. My basic is the Visage palette. So that's exciting that you'll be able to not only use this as a brush roll, you'll be able to use this more as a makeup bag, and it's a mobile makeup bag that'll protect because of the thickness on the outside. We've done our homework. We've gone to every beauty store, pretty much in Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, and Dallas, and no one really has brush rolls that are protective. They're very thin. So this is, for the first time, we've done some test runs of things don't tend to break in this one. So I'm pretty excited about that I could actually travel with my eyeshadow palette and it's not gonna break. So that'll be coming out in the next round of brush rolls, is larger pockets to actually fit your large eyeshadow palettes. The small will have one of those pockets, and the large brush roll will have two of those pockets for the standard eyeshadow palette. Any other hardware questions? We'll definitely do a Lydia makeup look down the line. Can you give a good cheapish eyeshadow palette recommendation? I will get back to you. I would love for Elle and I to, or just Elle, to be doing a video in the future as well about cheap versus expensive and recommendations on each of those. But I would say I love the L'Oreal makeup palettes. I think their colors can be great. I also love NYX as well. And they're pretty economical when it comes to palettes. And then we've also got, They go so fast sometimes. I do know the exact skin products and makeup I'll use on Lydia, and I'll talk about that in my skincare video that I'll be doing for you guys in the next couple weeks. We don't do any hair videos right now, but that doesn't mean that we can't. So if it's something you guys want, I know that's what we talked about last time on live as well. We would love to do a hair video with you guys as well. ELF palettes, L is saying ELF palettes, ELF, are also pretty economical for cheap eyeshadow, for not as expensive eyeshadow palettes. Eye makeup to show off green eyes. Well, I obviously have green eyes, and so I do a lot of purples. I do a lot of pinks. I think those tend to show off green eyes a lot, in my opinion. A lot of smoky eyes show off green eyes. Favorite high-end makeup products. That I will definitely cover in more makeup videos in the future, but Charlotte Tilbury, Clé de Peau, those are a couple of them. And then I will definitely show you some quick makeup looks to go to school, because I know what it's like to leave the house at 7 a.m. and you have to be ready. Would I ever adopt a wild animal? Absolutely never would I ever adopt a wild animal. There's a reason they're wild, and I have mixed feelings about dogs being domesticated, but they do depend on us for their survival. So, but no, I would never adopt a wild animal. I don't often paint. I always astounds me how great you guys are at drawing and at painting, because I do not have that talent, and I'm not even going to try because there's no point in me trying. Which is the problem I couldn't go without? Probably my Clé de Peau concealer or my cleanser, which I'll show you in the next couple weeks. Are products I can't live without. I do keep in touch with Team Wolf Cast, guys. Just assume that, because we do. We're a close group of friends. Any makeup? Green eyes. So again, purple and pinks to show off green eyes in the eyeshadow arena. Purples and pinks. And I'll take one last question. A good upcoming projects. I'm about to start filming a movie now. So as that comes to fruition after editing, I'll be talking more about that. But we're shooting in Los Angeles, so it's a nice commute for me this time. I did hear Adeline Kate was doing YouTube, so that's awesome. I can't wait to check her stuff out. And are you going to continue acting or moving in the makeup field? Hopefully both. Yeah, hopefully both. So one last question, a good question. Will you be doing Elle's makeup? Well, that would be a really funny turn. And Mercedes, thank you for your dot questions and your hardware questions. I really like to sort of, I really appreciate and call out the people that engage in the conversation with us. So thank you, because it's hard to just have me talking. Get that? I know that gets a little boring. So yes, Mercedes, thank you. I don't know if I'll ever do Elle's makeup. I don't know if Elle would ever let me do her makeup, but we could try. That would be a fun video. I would love to visit the Czech Republic, but let's get one more good hardware question in, since this is a Hardware Beauty YouTube live. Okay, my favorite look that we filmed on Hardware Beauty. This is a good one. It's hard because I like them all for different reasons. And I also, depends on the songs. Like Gabrielle Aplin I saw her in concert not too long ago, maybe 6 months ago, with one of my very good friends, Laura Webb, who's a music supervisor, and invited me to that show. And it's pretty cool that Kick Snare is working with us to debut new songs for you guys each week, because I am a huge music buff, as is Elle, as is obviously Kick Snare. So shout out to Gabrielle Aplin. Miss you. Dressage Gallery. So John Kay. We've got a lot of great artists. And let me see. Elle goes, yes, that would be amazing. We should do that, to do each other's makeup, or for me to do her makeup. That would be hilarious. That probably wouldn't turn out too well, but that would be really interesting to see. So how hardy are the brush rolls? Oh wait, I can scroll up. Nope, I can't really scroll up. So I gotta try and change something. It will mess up. Let me see. I use them to tote dog grooming tools for shows. Yes, you could totally use them for dog grooming tools. I would definitely get the large because it's a little bit higher. But 1000%, you can totally use these for dog grooming tools. It's a great actual multi-use for them. And again, yeah, my favorite look with hardware, I would say, I love the yellow dress and the pop of purple. You guys seem to really gravitate towards that as well. So that's probably my favorite functional look. But I do love this blue streak. I like that we're taking makeup in a direction that's a little bit more fantastical, yet still wearable. Obviously, you're not seeing people wear blue streaks in their eyes on a normal basis right now, but it's making its way on red carpets. I hope it's here to stay, and I hope people start incorporating them subtly to their outfits. And I've seen it. I've seen red eyeliner on. I've seen blue eyeliner on. You're starting like winged eyeliner. So you're starting to see a little bit more. So I'm excited to see what the future brings in these makeup trends. They're fun. They're really fun. So thank you so much for joining me. And thank you to Kick Snare and all of the songs that are being debuted, a new one each week on Hardware Beauty's channel. And thank you to Elle Leary, as usual, for being Hardware Beauty. Thanks, guys. I will talk to you later. And I will be posting a new documentary for the next live, which if it's not next week, it'll be the following week. And you'll have a video from me next Tuesday. And the topic is TBD, but it will either be skincare, travel, or probably a demonstration of the makeup brush rolls. All right, thanks, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.